All right, this is the quote for the image of God. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Well, um, welcome to Apologetics 101. I am your host, Christian apologist Brian Kipo, and we've been doing a very big Genesis series. It's been a wild ride, and it continues to get even better. I am so happy for the support for this series that I got going on here. Lots and lots of people have been watching my videos. It's a really good series. I'm so pumped up at what we got in store. And I've got more videos than this, and for chapter 1, and we're not even out of chapter 1 yet, so it shows you the depth of it. I have had a lot of really good interviews. I had one with Dr. Terry Mortensen from Answers in Genesis, one with Dr. Jason Lau from Biblical Science Institute on the origin of the universe. I'm hoping to have him back one more time if we can get that squared away, but right now he's a little bit on the busy side. Also, I got Eric Hovind coming at the end of the month of January next year, so I can't wait for that. So lots of great videos, got more interviews to do. I can't wait to get to chapter 2 where I do a lot of creation versus evolution debates. So if you're not subscribed to my channel, please get subscribed. Make sure you hit the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. Don't forget to like the videos. That helps get the information out there. But it's a really good series, and I hope everybody enjoys themselves. I know I've been enjoying making it. I'm pumped up with all the new videos that I've got. That I plan on scheduling ahead of time, and I'm already thinking several chapters away, including all the different videos I'm going to have. So I don't want anyone missing out. So please hit that subscribe button and get notified for any future videos. But this is a commentary series, and so how we've been doing it is that I've been like on chapter 1, I did exegetical in-depth commentary, or on chapter 1 where I went into the Hebrew and went into the text and did a verse-by-verse reading. I do that on purpose so that way I don't have to, when I do the other videos, and I'll explain that in a minute, I don't have to go back and start doing the same verse-by-verse reading. Instead, I've already got a video where I went through it verse by verse. I realize most people are probably going to jump in the middle. They're probably going to watch, a video that they really like the topic on. Like I had over 600 views on the origin of the universe, where I interviewed Dr. Jason Lau. That was a very interesting conversation. So if you haven't seen that video, please do watch it. I don't want to have to go back and have to redo that. And so that's why I do that. And there's been a lot of people that's been watching the very first video of this series. So please watch it. It's very helpful to watch that, by the way. I realize that a lot of people won't. They just kind of jump around in the series and whatever interests them and that sort of thing. But it's usually better to watch that video because other things will make sense. I don't want to have to sit there and do a verse-by-verse reading every single time I make a video, because I got lots and lots of topic matters to cover, which I'll explain here in a second. And so that video is intended so that can refer you back to that whenever you want to understand the context and understand the passages in question. The rest of the time, I'll be jumping around back and forth from chapter 1, where I did a contextual analysis with Dr. Terry Mortensen. We just kind of did a flyby. I didn't want to go through verse by verse because I already have a video doing that. And then after I do that, then I go back and do zero in on specific issues, specific arguments, specific topic matters, specific subjects relating to that chapter. Now, of course, once I finish chapter 1 of Genesis and go into chapter 2, this isn't bombardage with chapter 1, and we never talk about chapter 1 again. We're going to still be bringing it up. Chapter 1 is a very pivotal event. That's why it's taken me so long, because I've got a lot of videos to produce just in that one chapter. And so that's why it's taking me so long to get through chapter 1. because there's a lot of stuff that I want to produce, as a result of that chapter. And it's a very pivotal event in the Genesis controversy type subject. And so I think it's very important that we review chapter 1 before we ever move forward, because I think just like Genesis is a foundational book for the rest of the Bible, I think Genesis 1 is a foundational chapter for much of Genesis as well as Scripture. Like when Jesus refers back to the origin of marriage, he combines chapter 1 with chapter 2 and blends them together to understand this is how God originally established marriage. And so, and we'll cover all that when we talk about the origin of marriage when we get to chapter 2, which will probably be likely in February. Hopefully I won't have to push back any further than that. I got an interview with Eric Hovind on January 27th. I can't wait for that interview. That's going to be awesome. We're going to be talking about the scientific evidence for the young earth. And so we're going to cover all that. And then I'm hoping to move on to chapter 2 in February, but we'll see how that works out. I'm having to schedule things because of people's schedules and doing interviews. And so I had a lot of awesome people on here. I got some more coming up. I may have some more interviews. I don't know. I haven't thought about whether I was going to do any more interviews besides Eric Hovind, other than Dr. Jason Lau. I want to have Dr. Jason Lau back to talk to me about distant starlight, so I'm hoping I have that as well. And so besides those 2 interviews, I think that's the only thing. There are other videos I want to have, but they may not be interviews. I plan on looking into the arguments of John Walton on material creation versus functional creation, and I was planning on doing a video on that. But we'll see how that works out. I need to get some of the books in order to deal with his books, in order to deal with those arguments and interact with them. And so I'm going to be doing that. And so we got a lot of stuff in store, and I got a bunch of videos planned out for chapter 2. So it is awesome. So if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do so. I am very pumped up about the series. But as I'm doing a commentary series through Genesis 1, I realized that I can't just do subject matters that involve Genesis controversy type issues. I also need to, this is a commentary series, so I want to be able to deal with various issues a regular commentary, if you were to read a commentary, would deal with. And one of the things that commentaries usually deal with when they deal with Genesis 1 is the image of God. And I think this is important also for the Genesis subject matter, because in the evolutionary worldview, if you have a like say for example you're a theistic evolutionist, or and you try to interpret the image of God, you're going to interpret it quite differently than most Christians would interpret it, because you have an ape like ancestor that's going to have that image, and it's going to be one particular ape out of other ape-like ancestors possessing that image, and it's going to look a lot differently than what most people typically view image of God. And of course the image of God, and we'll get into this a little bit, has nothing to do with physical imagery. Anyhow, it has more to do with likeness to God, and we'll talk more about that. More to be representative of that. So we'll get into that. But that's our discussion today. I wanted to do a video. It probably won't be a very long video, but I wanted to do a quick video on the image of God, just to kind of have that discussion, because the image of God is in Genesis 1:26 and 1:27. So I'm going to do this video. This is going to be my video on the image of God. It's not going to be a real heavy edit video. So it's just more or less just to kind of touch base, let you know what the image of God is in Genesis 1, how it's actually considered, and whether or not, if human beings are still in the image of God, and what the image of God is, and that sort of thing. So without further ado, let's dive in. Alright, this is the quote for the image of God. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Genesis 1:26 and 27 ESV. Now, some people might say, well, dominion, as far as dominion, and I'm going to get into the image of God, but as dominion doesn't mean this is something hostile before sin. We'll get into that when we get to chapter 3. We'll talk a little bit more about that before sin and that sort of thing. Dominion it really will depend on context, as Dr. Terry Mortensen said in the last video. It's in some contexts it can be used in a violent way, in a volatile manner, but in other contexts it can be used just as a representative of the authority of God to rule over creation. This is seen also with the animals being brought to Adam to name them, and so that's a sign that he has authority over the animals. He has authority over the earth now. He's got dominion, and that's the headship argument is also in play. Like, that's why all of creation fell as a result. This is seen in Romans 5 and Romans 8 when Paul talks about this. We'll get into all that more when we talk about chapter 3. But in reference to the image of God, what does that mean to be in the image of God? And are we still in the image of God? But first, let's talk about what that means to be in the image of God. All right. The Hebrew word here is tsalam. Tsalam. The Hebrew word literally means image, likeness, or of resemblance. That's Brown Driver Briggs, pages 853 to 854. That would be this book right here. All right, that's the Brown Driver Briggs lexicon, Hebrew lexicon. It's one of the top, next to Baumgartner. It's one of the top scholarly lexicons in the world. Simply put, the word image is not referring to something physical. God, of course, in his nature is transcendent. And it doesn't mean that we have every ounce of God, nature of God. There's certain things that we don't have. We're not transcendent beings, for example. We're physical beings. We don't have a triunity in our nature the way God does. God has a triune nature. He has three persons that are that house within his nature. The one being that is God has three persons, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. They are part of that nature. So we don't have that. We're one person with one person in one being, which is different from God. So obviously it doesn't mean in those perspectives. And God doesn't have a body as we have a body. Sometimes the Bible will speak of God in what's called anthropomorphic characteristics, which is basically a way of using language to describe something in human language, something that is typically indescribable. And that's what we do with God. We sometimes talk about God having hands and a backside and a face, and obviously God does not have these things, not in the sense of human beings having these things. And obviously God is self-existing, self-sustaining. We're not self-sustaining. We need other things to sustain ourselves: food, water, air. We couldn't be sustained unless we have external means of sustaining. Whereas God is self-existing, self-sustaining. And so, Jesus said God is a spirit. So we know God doesn't have a body as we have a body. And so it's not talking about a physical image. Now, it can be used for idolatrous images, and it can be used for physical images, but it can also be used to be representative or in likeness or in similitude, as the Brown Driver Briggs said. And this is also clarified by the next passage, because right after it says that, it also says that we're created in his likeness, right? Let's make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish and so forth. All right, let's go to likeness here. Okay, the Hebrew word for likeness is demuth. It's pronounced demuth. And it means likeness, similitude, resemblance. It's actually used as a synonym for Teslam in the Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew English lexicon, page 198. And it's used as a synonym for Teslam or image. This is a reference to a resemblance. Can but does not have to mean something physical. In reference to the image of God, it means similarity in personhood rather than physical appearance. Similarity in ability to reasoning, goodness, individuality, freedom of choice, personhood, etc. These are kind of characteristics we would expect as the image of God. It does not mean in a physical sense, but more or less in a similitude sort of way. I like the way the Brown Driver Briggs put it, similitude. And so that's what we would expect that. It can also mean, as Dr. Jonathan Cervantes said in his commentary, the Genesis account, it can also be a kind of representative. They could use image in that way. In ancient times, they would use image as representative of that. It doesn't mean we are gods. It just means that this is a sign of God giving us his authority, and he created us in such a way that we would be able to represent him here on earth. And we see this kind of self-evident, as Sarfati puts it in his commentary, Genesis account. We see this also in Matthew 22:15 through 22, Mark 12:13 through 17, Luke 20:20 through 26, as referenced by Sarfati's commentary, and where Jesus talks about when the Pharisees and the Herodians try to trick Jesus there about the taxes. And they said, well, should we pay taxes to Caesar? Because they were trying to trap him, get him to say something against the Roman Empire. And he says, whose image is on that coin? They said, well, Caesar's. And he says, well, then deliver up to Caesar what is Caesar's. But then Jesus says, deliver up to God what is God's. In other words, we bear the image of God, and therefore we belong to him. We are his representatives here on earth. We're in likeness of God. Now, some people might question whether or not if we still have the image of God because of sin and the fallen nature and that sort of thing. And the answer is yes, we are. We are still in the image of God. And to some degree, we still have, we were created good. But we are, as Sarfati put it in his commentary, we were just marred by sin. That we are a bit marred because of sin. And sin corrupts our flesh, it corrupts our natures, and that sort of thing. And obviously God doesn't have sin in him. So other than that, we still got the likeness of God upon us. This is self-evident as we read through Scripture. There's another passage I want to use here. We'll talk about Genesis 9:6. Okay, and it says in Genesis 9:6, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made a man in his own image. He uses the fact that God made man in his own image as a justification for the death penalty. That means that since it's used as the justification for the death penalty, that we were still created in God's image. And we were originally, Adam was originally created good. It says so in the Bible that he was created good. When God created man, he saw it was very good. And when he looked on all creation, he saw it was very good. He said good like 7 different times. The seventh time he says, he looks on all creation, he says it's very good. And that's before sin came into the world, and sin corrupted that. That image is marred by sin. But it's still there because we still inherited the nature of Adam, even though sin now corrupts that nature, where sin doesn't corrupt, obviously, God's nature. But it does corrupt our nature. And so we have that, but we still have created in the image of God. The death penalty is justified on the basis that since we're created in the image of God and we kill another man, the punishment is so severe that God demands blood for blood, because we are created in the image of God, and you're taking the life of another innocent image bearer. Now this is talking about murdering. This isn't talking about killing in self-defense or some justified homicide or something like that. We're talking about cold-blooded murder, murdering an innocent person who possesses the image of God, and that's given as the reason for the death penalty. I'll get more into that when I cover Genesis 9. That's a long way from now. But I'll get more into that when we discuss Genesis 9:6. Right now, I just want you to know that the image of God continues. Jesus talked about it as well. Safati gives also James 3:9 is also a reference to it. So there's lots of biblical reasons to know that the image of God continued after the fall. So it wasn't that the image of God suddenly stopped and you were no longer in the image of God at all. We were still in the likeness of God, but now our natures are marred, or using Safati's word, marred by sin. It's tainted by sin now. And so, but anyway, I wanted to do a short video concerning the image of God. That's all I have for today. I just wanted to be able to discuss that real quick, because this is a commentary series, and I couldn't leave chapter 1 without talking about the image of God, because we're all in that image, and there's some other implications to being in the image of God. How we treat other people, how we and dominion, and being in the image of God. The Bible connects that to dominion and with rule. And so because of that, we are asked to be able to care for creation. We have a responsibility to creation. We have a responsibility as we are made as caretakers of creation and that sort of thing. I'll cover this. I'll cover at least with the death penalty in Genesis 9:6 later on down the road, like I said. But I just wanted on the topic matter of the image of God, and I wanted to discuss what exactly is that image. Are we still in that image? And what about in relationship to sin? We're created good originally and got marred by sin, and according to Scripture. And of course, we'll get more into talking about us being created good and perfect, and all of creation being created good and perfect when we get to chapter 3, because I will be doing some videos on the fall and on the death before sin, which I think is very important for these kinds of topics. But in any given case, it's been great. I love it, and I love doing this series. This series is awesome. Again, I know I keep saying this, but please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. Make sure you select all. That way you can be notified of all my videos. Make sure you like the video. That helps with YouTube to get this information out there, and it helps me to evaluate what you think of the video. Especially if you don't leave a comment, because I only know what you think of the video in 2 ways: either one, the comment section, or liking the video. And most people don't usually have time to really drop a comment, and sometimes people don't want a public comment anyhow. But liking the video, you don't even have to sign your name to it. I have no idea who likes the video and who doesn't, and you could just like it. It takes 2 seconds to do. So that's a quick way of helping me out without having to drop a comment if you don't want to drop a comment. But if you do want to drop a comment, I really want to hear what you think. And if you're enjoying the series so far, please let me know as well. And thank you again for joining me, and thank you for all the support that y'all have been giving me. And I really appreciate it. It's just made me more motivated on this series. The series has been awesome. I've never liked a series more than I like this, the Genesis series that I'm doing right now. All right. Again, thank you, and I will see you on the next one.